They gave me financial aid in the beginning,
Okay.
but then after I accepted, I already registered for classes, they updated my financial aid. My parents' income was over by $60 and I lost that financial aid.
My gosh.
Mhm.
They exaggerate.
Yeah. And by $60, it went over the income ceiling and I lost financial aid that first year. So I lost financial aid. I already registered for classes. It's like, they already got you.
Welcome to the Student Loan Podcast. Here, you'll find practical advice on tackling student loan debt, paying down your higher education expenses,
and inspiring stories about paying off student loans. We're your hosts, Daphne Vanessa
and Shamil Rodriguez.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Student Loan Podcast by visiting the Student Loan Podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is not professional advice, and we speak from our own personal views and opinions.
The Student Loan Podcast is brought to you by Start New, where you can serve your community and get rewarded with tuition and student loan payments. To check out if Start New is on your campus, visit startnew.com.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the Student Loan Podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, none other than Dr. Paolo Varquez. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
That's correct.
Nice. So we are very excited to have Dr. Varquez from the Student Loan Experience podcast, which is a new podcast that you guys should check out. It's really exciting, has stories about people and how they've overcome student loan debt. And so we're really, really excited to have you on. But before we get into the Student Loan Experience, why don't you share your story with our audience?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Daphne.
Of course.
Yeah, so just, I guess really quickly from my background, I was born in the Philippines and I lived in Singapore in my younger years. I came here second grade. Nice. And having Asian parents, even though I don't look Asian, I still had that pressure of being a doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Yeah.
And I'm a nurse, so of course my second choice was nursing.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So fast forward my high school years, fast forward to my college years. I went to UCSB for my undergrad. That's actually where I accumulated most of my loans.
Yep.
And because the message I heard in high school was, hey, just go to college, and particularly go to UC versus a Cal State. Over here in California, and community college was just out of the question.
Yep.
And because that's what I heard all the time from parents, teachers, my friends. I went to that UC route to have that college experience, and it really was the college experience. Santa Barbara is a huge party school, so I definitely got that experience.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was cool because my dorm, the sun actually used to wake me up every single morning.
Stop it.
Yeah, I had beach view in my dorm.
Oh my God.
I would start sweating, and that's when I know to wake up. It was it was amazing. But the cost was a different story.
Right.
Yeah. So and many of us, we're signing these papers at the age of 17, 18 without really understanding what we're signing up for, and so fast forward, I actually I went for my master's in counseling right afterwards. I got my bachelor's in psychology and sociology, changed my major so many times, like many people. And I got my master's right away in school counseling. My original goal was to become a school counselor in the high school level. And my original goal was to teach the high schoolers, hey, there's other alternative pathways out there, and to teach them about financial literacy. So that way they know how to do that before they even sign up for these loans.
Love it.
Yeah, that was my original goal. And then I ended up working at community colleges, fell in love with community colleges. Yes. And community colleges I find is like the purgatory between high school and the university system. And I find that also as one solution to actually reduce the amount of student loans we have.
It is
in the US. So after when I was doing my work I was actually a career advisor and a counselor at a community college. I got my doctorate in education. Amazing. So I was able to work at the same time while I was doing my school, which was really good. So all my loans actually were just in undergrad, because I learned not to do that for my grad degrees. Yep. So they're my master's, I got scholarships, I got fellowships, I got research fellowships, and such as yourself, Daphne shares your story in this podcast about hustling. I definitely learned that after afterwards. And then similarly, when I got my doctorate as well, since I was working full time, I saved up, but also I still applied for scholarship. I still got financial aid. I knew how it worked, so I knew how to play that system. So for those of you listening, if you don't have any, if you are planning on going for grad school or advanced degrees down the line, do it when your income is low, because you're more likely to get financial aid. So just think about that. And then I guess I'll fast forward. I don't want to take up too much of my journey, but fast forward, I graduated.
It's all about you today. It's all about you.
I actually graduated my doctorate during the pandemic. It was March when I
congratulations.
I graduated. I was a pandemic graduate. I was one of those
pandemic PhD.
Yeah, and when you're actually doing your doctorate, you're doing your dissertation where you present your research to these other PhDs and practitioners and presidents of colleges, and I defended my dissertation pandemic style, meaning I had my suit on the top and shorts at the bottom. Yes, and that's exactly how I graduated. And right when I finished, I knew my target was those student loans. Again, no student loans for my master's, no student loans for my doctorate, and I had about overall like 75,000 plus from an undergraduate. And that didn't really, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why go in debt in the beginning if you're planning to get like an advanced degree in the future? So for those that are listening, think about that. If you want to become a medical doctor or something, you want to go further, you might want to consider planning backwards. So maybe if you want to get loans, it might be better for you to take out loans at your advanced degree, but not your undergrad, when you could get that for free.
Right.
So, and then just like a quick summary of how I paid everything. I paid everything off in probably a year and 8 months, which is super fast.
Yes, you paid off $80,000 in a year and a half.
So $75,000 in like a year and like 8 months or something like that.
Oh man. Okay, we have to go into that. How did you do that? That's amazing.
Yeah. So working I think at the end of the day, it's basic math, and the more hours you put in, the more you can knock those out. I think a lot of people, when they get into paying off debt, the first person they maybe hear about is the Dave Ramsey approach, where they just, they line up, they're, but I literally, during the pandemic, because one thing to think about too is when there are tragedies, there are opportunities. That's something to always think about. And during the pandemic, the gig economy was on fire. It was on fire. So in addition to my full-time work at my college, I also picked up like part-time jobs. I did a lot of those gig works. So I literally did Uber Eats, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, Instacart. I'm sure I'm missing, Shipped. And for those of you that don't know, Shipped is actually, they work with Target, and it was hot back then. So I literally had all these apps on my phone, and I would just like multi-app and just deliver. And I was making during those times like 40 to 50 an hour. And you just, you're making pretty good money doing that. And literally it was just time. And after a year and 7 months, I was officially debt free, which is amazing.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, and days and zays, did you hear what Doctor just said? This is huge. You're saying that you leverage the gig economy during a time of when a lot of people could have seen scarcity, but you saw opportunity. Talk to us about the mindset that it took for you to shift, right? Because a lot of people were operating in deprivation mode during the pandemic, but it looks like you saw opportunity. Why is that?
Yeah, so I think, everyone looks at the world a little bit differently depending on what they're dealing with. It's really hard. I understand, if you're going through a pandemic and you lost your job, I mean, that's tough, especially if you have kids, you have family. That's a tough pill to swallow for sure. But at the end of the day, it is mindset. And I think having a community, whether that means, in person or even online, there's so much forums online nowadays where people are like, they built their community together and they even share goal settings. I think that's really important. And I think the talk of money is taboo, and it shouldn't be. I think, Yeah, I think the more, we talk about it to, especially parents, like I think parents need to talk to their kids about money. That's super important.
Agree.
But I think the more we talk about it with, friends, family, and just people around us, the more open we are with those kind of situations, the more likely we get to do something about it, especially attacking these loans. Because, again, we're gonna talk about our podcast later, but there's, you kind of have the individuals who attack it, and you kind of have the individuals that avoid it, and then everyone else kind of in between. And I think one of my inspirations was definitely like the debt-free community online.
Yeah.
And if you haven't checked it out, go to YouTube, just type in debt-free community or just like minimalism, and all these are all connected to each other.
They do. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So I have so many follow-up questions.
Mhm.
First of all, you mentioned minimalism. Are you a minimalist? Did you adopt that? Did that help you pay off debt by not having too much stuff?
Yes, I actually I picked this up probably during my college days, and I just got, and again, everyone has their own definition of minimalism.
I agreed.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. Well, live on less than what you make, and definitely because it's those little things, the little things that people spend that add up over time, the subscriptions that they don't even like use. So definitely that comes to play. And for those of you that don't know, my black shirt, I know you can't see this, but if you're hearing this, all my black shirt is from Costco. I have like 2 weeks supply of like Costco shirts, and that's all I use. And that's it. All my socks are the same. So that means when I'm doing my laundry, I don't have to think about matching because everything matches.
They all match. I've done that recently by accident, in that I bought like a few years ago, just a pack of these Under Armour socks that I just wear with everything. I have to be honest. And it's so comfortable. And then I got the same Toms. So I accidentally just wear my black leggings for everything. So if I have a suit, I'll just put on a blazer, but I'm wearing my same leggings. And then when it's time to work out, I change shirts, but I'm wearing my same leggings.
It keeps it simple for sure.
It keeps it easy. And there's less decision making about like outfits and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. If I have a gala or something like that, then maybe it's different. But for every day, I reduce decision making about like what I'm wearing, for example.
For sure. Yeah. And then one thing I forgot to share as well.
Yeah.
Some crazy thing I also did as I was like saving up. Because again, I started thinking about, minimizing my costs even before I started paying it off.
Yeah.
I used to go to Costco and do like 3 to 5 rounds of free samples.
Stop it.
That was my lunch. I made a blog about it. So actually, if you go to Instagram and type in like Costco Adventures, I've got to 316 different Costcos.
Oh my, we definitely have to. That's a strategy, ladies and gentlemen. That is a lunch strategy. You took the free pizza in college to another level.
Yeah. I made friends with all the sample people, and they would give me, I called it VIP sampling. They give me like, let's say it was chicken wings. They give me like 3 at the time. So
I love it. I love it. So that's being creative, right? It's thinking about everyday things, and there's something inside. Everybody's different, right? But for me personally, I hate overspending on necessities. I don't know where it comes from, but I have a strong desire of, if something's a need, I want to spend as little as possible or nothing. I don't know why. But I never thought about going to Costco for lunch. So, I mean, I have a new tool in my toolkit. Too bad Costco doesn't have a lot of vegan options, but if they did, that would be my new spot.
Yeah. Good strategy right there.
It is. It is. So talk to us about what you use in terms of, so 2 questions, actually. What you use as a payoff strategy. Did you do avalanche, or did you do snowball, or a combination, or something else? And actually, what was the makeup of your student loans? Were that you paid it off so fast that it actually doesn't materially matter, but just so that the audience is aware, what was the makeup of your student loans?
Okay. Actually, this is a very good question, because my student loans was like, my personal student loans was about $32,000, and the rest was actually from Parent Plus loans. So
wow.
yeah. So during my undergrad, I skip this piece, but they gave me financial aid in the beginning.
Okay.
But then after I accepted, I already registered for classes, they updated my financial aid. My parents' income was over by $60 and I lost that financial aid.
My gosh.
Mhm.
They exaggerate.
Yeah. And by $60, it went over the income ceiling and I lost financial aid that first year. So not only because tuition alone is like, 10, 12,000, whatever it is for at a UC, plus I dormed my first year, that adds on another 12,000 right there. So I lost financial aid. I already registered for classes. It's like, they already got you.
Yeah.
So both my parents had to take out Parent Plus loans, and I ended up having to take it over because in my perspective, it's kind of like,
Of course.
it was my education. I didn't want them to pay for it. One thing also that I forgot to mention, my dad's Parent Plus loan originally was 15,000, and that grew to, it was 20,000, and then the interest was like, it grew like another 15,000. So at the end of it, it turned into
Almost
35,000.
Insane.
Yeah. So, and it was 7% interest for Parent Plus loan. So again, most people don't, again, it's one of those things where I didn't look at it.
Yep.
So having those conversations with parents is really, really, really important because that $15,000 could have been avoided for sure.
Yeah. Crucial. This is absolutely the reason why we have these conversations, right? So that people know and they're aware and start thinking about Parent Plus loan. Let me look at the interest rate. Let me make sure that this actually makes financial sense. What are some other ways that we can pay for school? So that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. And then of your student loans, the 35K, were they all Stafford or were they direct? Like what kind of student loans were they? Federal?
It was all federal. It was all federal. There was no private there. And it was a mix of both subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And I targeted, and the way I attacked it was, let me try and think of a way I attacked it. It was mainly snowball method, which is like lining up from lowest to highest. However, I did have a Google Sheets. So basically an Excel, and I literally map, okay, like how much am I paying? What's my minimum I want to put in these loans per month? And I always put that extra. And I basically turned it into a game. I turned it into a game where what's like the most I could pay for this month. And then the thing is, I shared that on my stories on my Instagram. So it inspired a lot of people. It inspired them to pay off their student loans or whatever debt they're dealing with. They're like, wow, like this is really powerful. Like I've had my credit card loans for like 5 years and you're motivating me to pay it off.
I love it.
So I think sharing it has a lot to do with it, because now you're like, oh God, next month I want to go even higher now because someone's going to call me out on this. Yeah. So definitely one first step you want to do is one good step that you could do, is different ways to do it, is literally putting it on an Excel or some kind of document, because if everything's on your head, you either avoid it or you overestimate or underestimate. Yeah. It makes it more realistic to put it on a document.
Love it. And did you leverage automation at all in the payoff of your student loans?
Yeah, for sure. I think I put in, the minimum was $250 every month. But of course, it was a combination of both automation plus manually inputting, because I always put extra. So all the money I was making extra from all the gig stuff, and because that really varied, I just threw it in there, because at the end of the day, it is math. The more you make, the more you put in there, the less is gonna go, and the faster you do that, the faster you're in debt. So you could do whatever you want with your money when you're done. Yeah, and it's very freeing when you're done.
Oh, amazing. What was the first thing you did when you were debt free from student loans?
I wore my shirt that said straight out of debt whole day.
Love it.
That was the very first thing I did from what I remembered. And then probably the next thing I started doing was I actually started thinking about doing that podcast that I started. I didn't start it then, because I actually finished officially, I think it was October 18th of last year that I finished.
So fast, by the way.
It was
just graduated and you already paid off your student loans. That's intense. Can we get a round of applause? I wish I had a round of applause like on like a DJ board or something, but yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So definitely leverage the pandemic for sure.
For sure. And so talk to us about the student loan experience. It seems like you obviously are well qualified to have a podcast about student loans. Talk to us about what's the student loan experience and how has it made a difference in people's lives?
Yeah, so the Student Loan Experience is a podcast I just started last December. And really the purpose of that podcast is to share stories. So I think when people don't have student loans, it's hard for them to understand what people are going through with student loans.
Right.
And everyone is different. They just, a lot of times, especially sometimes they're older, they're like, you got it out, you got to pay it back now, which makes logical sense, right? Yeah. But when you're 18, 17, taking this money out and you're just listening to what everyone tells you, you don't think about that. And then years later, you're like, oh crap, like I have to pay this off. And there's no sense of what $32,000 mean. Because in me, for example, I thought, okay, I'm gonna get out of college and make $50,000. If I take $50,000 in loans, I'm gonna pay that off in 1 year. I literally, that was my thought.
Yeah.
In my high school years, without thinking about taxes, without thinking about all your expenses every single month. Because they don't. Yeah, exactly. And no one talks about finance. Yeah, adulting, basically. Yeah, adulting 101. No one talks about those kind of information. I think that's way more valuable than the A through G's that we learn in high school or the general ed we learn in college as well. Right. So basically it's like a platform where others could hear other people's stories, and everyone has different takes on it. Some people they attack it, such as myself, and there's some people that have way more student loans. There's some person in there, he's a physical therapist, and he has $350,000 in student loans.
Yep.
And he paid it off.
Love it.
Yeah.
Story.
And then there's also other individuals where, for example, like their original $20,000 loan ballooned up to like $120,000 because they didn't. Yeah, because a lot of people sometimes when they see those letters, they either ignore it or don't open it, and different reasons, right? And sometimes you're opening it, you really can't afford it. And again, everyone is different. Everyone takes it a little bit differently. So my goal really is to invite people that have dealt with student loans from different angles. Yeah. That way, and eventually the goal is to influence people in power to make policies so this could be stopped. Like the cycle just can't continue. It doesn't make any sense at all why we're punishing people that want to be educated. It just does not make any sense. Mm-hmm. And also inviting people that also have a voice, such as yourself. Start New is one of your mission is to help reduce the student loans. I think if everyone's kind of doing something to reduce it, and I think if we work together,
yeah,
exactly. I just think it's already snowballing, and I think big things are going to happen for sure down the line.
I love it. I love the idea of working together. I'm going to make a pact that we will work with you specifically on influencing people to change policies so that we are a nation that encourages more inclusivity of education, regardless of socioeconomic class. So I am super excited. Love the idea of partnering. You're right. We're all doing something in the student loan space, but what would happen if we all came together? It would be awesome. So Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Well, I feel like we've gotten so much out of this story. Your story is super inspiring. The fact that you came from so far to achieve what you've done and already paid off your student loans, you've accomplished way more than a lot of people do in their entire lifetime. What's next for you in terms of success?
I think right now, only because I felt like I not lost, but I felt like my 20s had a lot of valuable, I'm 30 now. So I felt like my 20s had a lot of valuable time, not necessarily loss, but in terms of like investing, because after you learn about like student loans, a lot of people get into like finances, financial literacy, financial independence. So because I I felt like I needed to catch up on my 20s.
Yeah.
My goal this year is to max out all my retirement accounts.
Nice.
Oh yeah, my employer offers a 403b, which is kind of like the 401k for nonprofits.
Mhm.
We also offer a Roth 403b.
Nice.
So I'm maxing out on yeah, for sure. Maxing out on my Roth IRA as well. And because I'm still doing the gig work. Some people are like, hey, are you going to stop doing the gig work? And for me, it's like, I don't think so.
Love it.
First of all, I like doing the work. I like doing the work because I do work from home because of my college. So doing sometimes Uber and Lyft on the side kind of
Helps you get out.
Yeah. And I like people and
Oh,
it helps. It kind of balanced me out actually.
love it. And how humble must you be to literally be a doctor and still do delivery? Ladies, gentlemen, theys and zays, I just want you guys to listen and understand how humble of a person you must be, right? I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I also think it's a message for maybe the older generation as well, who say, millennials are lazy, millennials don't do this and that. And I just want to be a model and say, hey, I'm a doctorate degree. I'm still doing this kind of work.
Yeah, love it.
And it's not our fault. And we're doing the best we can. And we have really smart people such as yourself doing great work. And we need to be acknowledged about the stuff that we do.
Thank you. And I agree that millennials, I don't know how this happened because I don't really know the lazy millennials, I have to be honest. But you're right. Like we are doing so much and we do get a bad rap. So thank you for being another example of, despite your success, despite paying off your student loans, despite getting a PhD, you are still out there hustling Uber, Lyft. And that is the example. That is the American dream, right? That is literally the American dream. And you're an example of that. So thank you for sharing that and inspiring so many people.
Thank you.
Love it. So with all that we've talked about, is there a message that you want to leave with our audience? Are there any words of encouraging advice that you have for listeners of the Student Loan Podcast?
Yeah, I think my first message is that you're not alone. There's a lot of people with situations that you're dealing with. I think the first step is really facing it. Try not to avoid the problem because it is going to creep up on you, and sometimes it's going to creep up on you in ways that you don't want. You don't want to be that last minute person. There's definitely a lot of ways to get involved if you do want to make a difference. There's a lot of ways where you could. For example, there's a lot of ways where you can get involved. Like, for example, when it comes to like pushing some kind of policies, calling your governor, like getting involved locally. I mean, if you literally Google student loans and then your county or your area, you'll find some nonprofits out there that is doing some kind of work that you agree with. So I think that's the first step, is like being aware and also getting involved. That's the first step. And then another message I want to share, especially for our younger generation, is that it's your life. It's not your parents' life. And that's really important. And I have a message for parents as well, because I think there's a lot of pressure from a lot of parents to send their kid to their top university. And I finally figured out like one reason why they want their kids to go to these prestigious schools like UCLA, NYU, like these prestigious universities, is so during holiday parties you could show them off to your like sisters and brothers, their uncles and the rest of their family, saying, hey, my kid goes to NYU studying medical, like, to become a doctor, to make it's. So basically, like the way I think about it is like parents' egos are tied up to their kids' university, like whatever choice their university goes to. And I think that needs to stop. And that would help, that would alleviate a lot of the stress that a lot of high schoolers feel, because they're like, oh, I got to do this because I have to impress my parents or my teachers. But there's so many alternative ways out there. Community college. I worked in a community college. I went to a public school. I went to California. I went to Cal State and the UC, and now I work at a community college. And I can tell you now, as a counselor, as an advisor, it's one of the best moves you could make. If you get financial aid, you go to university, go for it. But community college is one of the greatest routes you could go to. And don't oversee the the trades as well. There's so many careers in the trades where you go to school for like a semester and you get a certificate and you can start making really good money without all the crazy amount of student loans.
Yep. Contractors are winning,
Mhm.
especially right now. And that's a trade.
Yeah, exactly.
That is fantastic advice. I think that we've had a great conversation. Where can listeners find you? Where can they find out, how to connect with you? You mentioned Instagram. Are there any other channel, that people can hit you up?
Yeah, I mean, first, if you want to add me professionally, you could always go to LinkedIn and type in Paolo Varquez. You'll find me there. If you want to listen to the podcast, the Student Loan Podcast, you go to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Just type in Student Loan Experience, and you'll be able to find me there. If you are interested in the Costco Adventures, and it's just another thing I want to say is balance is key. Have your self-care, have your outlet, and Costco is just one of those things for me. So if you want to follow. If you want to follow me there, if you go to Instagram and just type in Costco Adventures, you'll be able to find my information there as well.
That is so fun. Well, guys, I know what I'm doing after I'm binging Costco Adventures. Sounds like it'll be very entertaining. And we are so excited to have had you on. Thank you so much, Dr. Varquez, for joining us. Everyone, for more information about this episode, please visit thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 61. That's thestudentloanpodcast.com/episode 61. Thanks so much.